Ruthless Mafia king is forced to marry you. The grand cathedral was filled with scent of roses and the soft murmur of distant conversations. Jungkook, the gold and ruthless Mafia king, stood at altar, his face a mask of indifference. His broad shoulders were clad in a perfectly tailored suit, but beneath the facade of power, his mind was elsewhere, locked in a battle with his past. As the heavy door opened, revealing wine in a delicate white gown, his heart involuntarily clenched. Memories from a long forgotten fight flashed before his eyes. The blood, the betrayal, the feeling of loss. He blinked, pushing the thought away as his bride walked toward him, her eyes shimmering with a mix of fear and uncertainty. Jungkook's jaw tightened as the priest began to the ceremony. Even though he doesn't want to get married because for him women are nothing but a weakness. His father's cold order echoed in his mind. Flashback. Jungkook sat in his father's grand office, the heavy air between them crackling with tension. His father, Jo Suman, stood at window, hands clasped behind his back, staring out over the sprawling city they ruled with an iron fist. Sungmin, you know why we are here, he began, his voice low but firm. The Kim family has proposed an alliance through marriage. Jungkook's eyes narrowed, his voice dripping with dissent. Marriage? I don't need a wife. I need power, control. Things a woman can't offer. Sumin turned sharply, his eyes cold. Sumin, this isn't about what you need. This is about what the family needs. We have fought too long to build this empire. The king's wealth and our influence will make us unstoppable. Jungkook scoffed, rising from his chair. Jungkook, I have built this empire through fear and force, not by playing house. Sumin's expression hardened. Sumin, and that's exactly why you will marry Kim Bai. It's not a request, it's an order. Sumin stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. Sumin, you will marry her, Jungkook, because without this alliance, we will have enemies at every corner. You have made plenty of them. Do you think you can hold them all off alone? Jungkook's eyes blazed with anger. You are throwing me into a cage and expect me to sit quietly? Sumin, I expect you to do your duty. His father shouts back, unflinching. This is the price of power. Jungkook's silence filled the room, the weight of his father's word pressing down on him. He knew there was no way out of this. Despite his fury, he had to obey. Flashback ends. Jungkook had no choice, and as Wine reached him, standing a mere foot away, he could barely look at her. Jungkook, I don't, he muttered coldly, barely loud enough for anyone to hear. Vian's heart skipped a beat as she recalled her parents' tearful words that morning. Flashback. Kim Vian sat with her parents in their lavish sitting room, her heart pounding as they explained her fate. Mr. Kim, you must understand Vian, her father began gently. This marriage is more than just a union between two people. It's an alliance that will protect us all. Vian. But father, he's dangerous, she whispered, her hand trembling. I have heard the stories. Jungkook, they say he's ruthless, heartless. Her mother, sitting beside her, sits softly. He will protect you. He may be feared, but he values his family all above all else. Vine's eyes filled with fear. Why? But I don't love him. How can I marry a man who terrifies me? Her father's face softened, but his tone was firm. Mr. Kim, he'll protect you, Vine. He may seem harsh, but he'll keep you safe. You must marry him for the family. Vine's throat tightened. She wanted to run, to scream, to escape this way. But deep down, she knew she had no choice. Her family's future depended on this marriage, and she could not refuse. But all she saw now was a man who seemed more likely to destroy her than to protect her. The priest repeated, priest, do you, Kim Wyan, take Jeon Jungkook as your lawfully wedded husband? She froze, her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her entire body stiffened under the weight of expectations. The priest's voice echoed once more, snatching her out of her trance. I do, she finally whispered, her voice shaky, barely audible as her eyes filled with unshed tears. The ceremony went by in a blur, and before she knew it, the priest's voice ran out. Priest, you may now kiss the bride. Jungkook's lips brushed her cheek in a cold, mechanical gesture. There was no tenderness, no sign of affection. The rest of the ceremony passed in a haze. Jungkook's coldness was palpable, and Wine felt like a stranger in her own wedding. Time skips at Jungkook mansion. When they reached his mansion that night, the tension only grew worse. The lavish mansion was eerily quiet. Wine stood awkwardly near the entrance, still in her gown, while Jungkook stormed ahead of her, his long strides echoing through the hallway. Wine struggled with her gown, trying to follow him, her heart beating fast in her chest. One of Jungkook's bodyguards, sensing her struggle, stepped forward to assist her. Bodyguard, ma'am, let me help you, he offered, leading her toward the grand entrance hall. As they entered, they found Jungkook sitting on the plush couch, surrounded by his men. His dark, piercing gaze flickered toward her briefly before he signaled for her to come closer. Without looking up from the paperwork in front of him, Jungkook's voice, I say, Jungkook, show her to her room, he ordered, barely acknowledging her presence. Wine blinked, standing frozen for a moment. Why? Where are you going? She stammered, fear creeping into her voice. Jungkook's eyes hardened, and his reply was sharp, almost cruel. Jungkook, it's none of your business, he snapped, standing abruptly. Don't expect anything from me. This marriage is nothing but a business arrangement. My father forced this one on me. His cold voice cut through her like ice, and before she could mutter a response, he walked out of the room, leaving her standing alone, heartbroken. Wine clenched her fist, swelling back her tears. Wine, isn't it what you expected? She whispered to herself. But I won't give up. I'll try to win his heart. She took a deep breath. And if still he doesn't want me in his life, I'll leave. There's no use to be in a relationship without love, she said while tears streaming down her face. After storming out of the house, Jungkook found himself at one of the exclusive clubs he frequented with his closest friends. The dim lighting and pulsing music offer him a temporary escape from the suffocating reality of his marriage. At the bar, his old friend Jimin greeted him with a raised eyebrow. Jungkook, Jimin said, smirking as he took a sip of his drink. Shouldn't you be, I don't know, celebrating with your wife? It's your first night as a married couple. Jungkook scoffed and signaled the bartenders for a drink. I don't love her. I never will. Jimin leaned back, crossing his arms. Jimin, that's harsh, man. She's your wife now. What did she do to deserve all this hate? Jungkook, she's a burden, he replied, his voice low and filled with frustration. I was forced into this marriage by my father. When I take over, I'll divorce her. I just have to wait until my father's retires. And all the power is in my hands. Jimin stared at his friend in shock, unable to understand how Jungkook could be so cold. Jimin, you can't just treat her like that. She's a person, Jungkook, not some pawn in your power game. Jungkook clenched his jaw, anger bubbling inside him. I don't care, he snapped. I never wanted this marriage, and I won't let her make things more complicated than they already are. She is nothing to me. Jimin sighed, shaking his head. He knew Jungkook was stubborn, but this was beyond cruel. You are going to regret this one day, man, he muttered, sipping his drink. Mark my words. Jungkook clenched his jaw, his mind wandering back to Ryan's face at the wedding. The way she had looked at him with those sad, innocent eyes. But he quickly pushed the thought away. He wouldn't let himself feel anything. The following morning, Vine awoke with a renewed determination. She had spent the night alone waiting for Jungkook to return, but the hours ticked by and he never came home. She knew her situation was different, but she wasn't ready to give up. If there was even the smallest chance to soften Jungkook's heart, she had to try. As she made her way downstairs, she noticed the maid preparing a tray in the kitchen. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the room, and Vine approached, curious. Good morning. Vine greeted the maid with a soft smile. Who is the coffee for? The maid looked up, startled, before quickly bowing her head. Maid, good morning, ma'am. The coffee is for Master Jungkook. He requested it while he is working in his office. She explained, her hands moving nervously over the tray. An idea formed in Vine's mind. Maybe if I make it for him, it will show him that I care, that I am trying. She looked at the tray, then back at the maid. Vine, do you think I could make the coffee instead? She asked gently, her voice hopeful. The maid's eyes widened in shock and her hands froze in mid motion. I am sorry, ma'am, she stammered, her face paling slightly. But Master Jungkook, he doesn't like it when things aren't done exactly as he asked. If he found out I let you make the coffee, he might get angry. Her voice trembled as she spoke, clearly terrified of the consequences. Vine's heart sank. She knew Jungkook had a reputation for being cold and harsh, but she hasn't realized just how deeply that fear ran through everyone around him. Even the staff were scared to upset him. I understand, Vine said softly, but then something inside her urged her to push forward. She couldn't let fear hold her back. This was her chance to show Jungkook that she was more than just a burden. But please let me do this. It's something I really want to do for him. The maid shook her head quickly. Ma'am, if Master Jungkook gets angry, why? He won't. She interrupted, her voice firmer than before. I promise he won't get angry. Nothing will happen. I just want to help him to do something as his wife. Please. The maid hesitated, glancing nervously at the door, as if expecting Jungkook to walk in any moment and catch them. Her hand frittered, and she bit her lips. I really shouldn't. Why? Please, she urged gently, her eyes pleading. It's important to me. I want to do this. After a long moment of silence, the maid finally relented with a small note. Though the fear in her eyes hasn't disappeared. Alright, she whispered. But please be careful, ma'am. I'll be blamed if anything goes wrong. Vine gave her a grateful smile. Thank you, don't worry, I will handle it. With careful hands, Vine took over the coffee making process. She measured the grounds, her finger trembling slightly as she focused on getting everything just right. This was her chance to bridge the gap between them. even if it was something as small as making coffee. But as she poured the hot water, her mind wanders to Jungkook's distant behavior, and her focus slipped. The steam scalded her hand, and she let out a yelp of pain. She quickly pulled her hand away, shaking it to ease the steam. But she didn't let the pain stop her. She had to finish this for him. Once the coffee was ready, Vine placed the mug carefully on the tray and made her way to Jungkook's office. Her heart raced as she approached the door, unsure of how he would react. She knocked softly before stepping inside, her voice thin. I brought you coffee, she said, her voice soft but hopeful. Jungkook didn't look up. Jungkook, I didn't ask you to. Swallowing her fear, Vine moved closer. I thought. Before she could finish, her hand shook slightly and the cup tipped forward. Hot coffee splattered across the desk, soaking his documents. A stunned silence filled the room as Jungkook's eyes snapped to the mess, his jaw tightening. Jungkook, are you kidding me? He growled, standing up abruptly. Do you have any idea how important these papers are? Vine backed up, her face pale. I am so sorry. I didn't mean. Cook took a deep breath, clearly trying to control his temper. He was already frustrated with the deal he couldn't crack, and now this. His eyes flickered to Vine, her face frozen in fear. The sight of her wide, scared eyes temporarily held back his anger, but the frustration boiled under his skin. He clenched his fist, turning his attention away from her. Maid, he barked. The maid rushed in faster than Vine could react, her face filled with panic. Maid, yes, sir, she said, her voice trembling. Jungkook glared at her. When I ask you to bring the coffee, why is she doing it? Do you want to be finished? The maid fell to her knees instantly. Her hands collapsed together in front of her. Maid, I'm so sorry, sir. Please forgive me. Please, it was my fault. I should have known better. No, Vine spoke up, her voice trembling but determined. It wasn't her fault. I forced her. I wanted to do something for you, my husband. Jungkook's body stiffened at her words, and for a brief second, a flicker of surprise crossed his face. He waved the maid away, who scrambled out of the room with a nervous glance back at Vine. As soon as the door closed, Jungkook turned back to Vine, his expression hardening again. Jungkook, why do you keep interfering? His voice was cold, but there was a restraint to his anger. I didn't ask for your help. I didn't need it. You have only made things worse. Fine, I just wanted to. Jungkook wanted to what? He cut her off, his eyes flashing with irritation. You can't do anything right. Let the staff handle it next time. Don't make my work even harder than it already is. I'm your wife, Vine said, her voice breaking slightly. I wanted to show you I care. Jungkook scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. Wife? His voice was laced with bitterness. I never asked for a wife. I didn't want this marriage. The only reason you are here is because of my father. Vine's chest tightened, and the weight of his word crushed any hope she had left. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them back, refusing to let him see how deeply his word hurts. Jungkook, just leave. Jungkook muttered, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. Get out of my sight. Without another word, Vine turned and left the room, her heart aching with every step she took. She had tried, but it seems no matter what she did, it would never be enough for Jungkook. After Vine rushed out of the office, Jungkook stood there for a moment, his chest rising and falling rapidly. as he tried to regain his composure. The tension in the air was palpable, but his gaze quickly shifted to the mess on his desk, the spilled coffee, tattered papers, and his ruined soul. His frustration boiled over. He muttered under his breath, slamming his fist on the desk. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room as he thought to calm himself. The idea that had already been slipping through his fingers, now this, he clenched his jaw, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on him. In a dimly lit room, far from Jungkook estate, two men sat at a large table, their faces shadowed by the low light. They were silent, deep in thought, as if waiting for something to break the tension. Suddenly, the door cracked open and a guard entered, bowing slightly before handing a sealed envelope to the man sitting at the head of the table. He took the envelope, his lips curling into a sly smile as he tore it open and read the content. His smile grew wider as his eyes scanned the paper. Well, well, the man said, leaning back in his chair, a mocking tone in his voice. So my old friend Jungkook got married, but no invitation. How rude of him. The other man sitting beside him smirked. What do you expect from him? He's never been one of for pleasantries. The first man chuckled darkly, his eyes gleaming with malice. True, but still, as a friend, I suppose I should send him a wedding gift. Something memorable. A gift he'll never forget. His companion raised an eyebrow into a great. What do you have in mind? The man didn't respond directly. Instead, he looked down at the laterally, his smile growing even more sinister. He'll know soon enough. Let's just stay. It will be a gift he'll remember for a lifetime. The both exchanged glances, the air thick with unspoken plan. The guards stood silently in the corner awaiting further instructions, but none came. Whatever these two were plotting, it was clear they intended to strike Jungkook where it would hurt the most. Back at his office, Jungkook was furiously working to restore order to the chaos that had erupted with the spilled coffee. His jaw clenched as he scanned the document, trying to salvage what he could. The phone on his desk rang, breaking the tense silence. Jungkook sighed, not wanting to be disturbed any further, but he picked it up. But he snapped, his irritation still shimmering from earlier. But after hearing what the person on other line said, his grip tightened around the phone, his eyes narrowing. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Without another word, Jungkook slammed the phone down, a cold rage filling him. He stood abruptly, grabbing his jacket as he stormed out of the office. Whoever was behind this would pay dearly, Jungkook thought. What do you think will happen next? Comment down below. Like, share, subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching.